Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Good early morning to our guest, Omira, who is in British Columbia. If you can hear me, please raise your hand on the tool just so I can make sure that everyone can hear me. Okay, I see some hands coming up. Thank you so much. And I see a lot of people are joining right now, so I'm just gonna take a minute before we move through our presentation so people can join and connect their audios. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ligia Chiari, and I'll be your host for today. I will introduce our guest, Elmira Galieva, better in the following minutes, but thank you all for joining us. Okay, we're gonna get started because we have a lot to cover today. We want to make sure we have time for Q&A. So welcome to our webinar, Employment Opportunities in Canada Beyond the Big Cities. This is our third webinar in this series, so where we explore other opportunities in different parts of Canada. And today we are talking about the South Okanagan region in British Columbia. And we have Elmira here who will talk about it and show us the wonderful places in the South Okanagan. So before we start, I would like to do a land acknowledgement, which is a formal statement often spoken at the beginning of a public event that is taking place on land originally inhabited by or belonging to Indigenous people of Canada. So I'm going to do my land acknowledgement based on where I'm located. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Before we start our presentation, just a few housekeeping rules. So this webinar is being recorded and the length is approximately 1 hour. All participants, we ask you that you please keep your lines muted, but we will allow you to unmute yourself during Q&A, so during questions and answers. The question and answer session will be at the end of the webinar, but we'll make sure to leave enough time for you to ask your questions. You can type your questions in the questions box and let us know if you're interested in asking it on the microphone. So if you just want to type it, it's okay, I'll read it for you. If you want to ask it yourself, please type it there and just say, I would like to ask it. To find the questions box, please click Show Control Panel on the GoToWebinar tool. So if you're not used to the tool and you can't quite find the questions box, you need to click on Show Control Panel. Please take time to complete the post-webinar survey. It's really important to us to know what you're interested in, how we can improve the content for future webinars. The recording will be shared, so you will receive it on the post-webinar email. And we are hosting remotely. Like I said, Elmira is in BC, I'm in Ontario, and we're also in our homes. So please be patient with us. If we have any technical issues, we'll work through it. Okay. So you probably know a lot about Canada InfoNet, but I will just give you a quick refresher, or in case you haven't done your orientation yet. Canada InfoNet is a pre-arrival employment acceleration and mentorship program It's a free national 8-week program delivered by JVS Toronto with other industry partners. It served over 8,000 English and French-speaking immigrating professionals since 2016, and it has dedicated employment specialist support that support professionals arriving in the next 12 months with employment services such as employment preparation, connecting to a Canadian mentor, resume, cover letter, and much more, as you can see on this slide. I believe you're all already our program participants, but if you are not, make sure to register. And if you haven't contacted your employment counselor yet, make sure to do so. That's the best way for you to get access to all of the services that we offer at Canada InfoNet. I said in the beginning, my name is Ligia Chiari, but I forgot to mention that I am a manager with the pre-arrival services at JVS. So I work closely with the Canada InfoNet program, but I'm a manager at Project Welcome, which is a new opportunity for mentorship within our pre-arrival services. So I would also like to talk about it with you. Project Welcome connects immigrating professionals to smaller communities throughout Canada before your arrival through community connections and occupation-specific mentoring. It's open to international professionals approved to immigrate to Canada in the next 2 to 12 months. Through it, you can learn about job opportunities and the skills small communities are looking for. You can access welcome toolkits on each community, connect to local employers and Canadian mentors working in your industry, and get settlement support through community organizations. So at the end of this webinar, I'll tell you how to register for it if you're interested. But this brings us to our guest, excuse me, our guest, Elmira Galieva, who is one of our partners with Project Welcome. So Elmira is the coordinator of the South Okanagan-Similkameen Local Immigration Partnership with the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services, SOICS. So SOICS is our partner with Project Welcome. They provide mentorship with their local mentors. So if you're interested in that, we'll talk about registration later. Elmira holds a master's degree in development administration from Western Michigan University and has over 20 years of experience working in the nonprofit sector. Elmira has led projects in a wide range of fields: community development, local governance, economic development, education, housing, and health. She immigrated to Canada from Kazakhstan in 2009, and since 2011 has been working with local immigration partnerships. She and her husband moved to South Okanagan in March 2019 and are happy to be a part of the community and a great ambassador from it. So I will let Elmira tell you a little bit more about her story in South Okanagan. Welcome, Elmira. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I will give you the presentation. Okay, I'll make you presenter. So now you can share your screen.
All right. Hello, everyone. So today, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about our community, the South Okanagan-Similkameen, and maybe you will have some questions, and I would be happy to answer them. Before we begin, I wanted to also acknowledge the land I'm on. I live, work, and play on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory, unceded meaning stolen territory, of the SOICS people of the Okanagan Nation. And this land acknowledgement does not replace my obligation to work to decolonize my daily life and practices. And here you see the territory of the traditional territory of the Syilx people. And it, as you see, it goes through the borders. It goes to the United States, which is now the United States. And you see a beautiful picture of South Okanagan as well. So I wanted to start off by telling you a little bit about my organization. So if you decide to come here, you know what we do and you can find us easily. But before that, I also wanted to add to you to the uh, introduction that Ligia made, that I am really, really happy to be here. I spent about 10 years in Toronto. That was my first landing place. And we just decided that it was too big and too noisy, and we spent too much time in traffic. So we wanted to move to a smaller community. And I'm glad we did. So I'll tell you more about it. So the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services have been around for over 45 years. So it's a well-established organization. Unlike in many other communities, because we're smaller, this organization offers all the services that are available to newcomers. So it's language training, career planning and job search, settlement, application processes. We have different life skill workshops. We have the local immigration partnership and citizenship preparation, mentorship, a lot of different things. And we serve around 1,500 clients a year that come from over 100 countries. So we're pretty diverse. So in this section, I'll talk about the lifestyle, a little bit about geography and climate, our community, main activities, the healthcare system, education, and cost of living. You see a picture of one of the wineries on the screen right now. So here we are. This is where we're located. So you have an idea. So it's the region is called South Interior or Interior region, and we're about if you want to drive to Vancouver, we're about 4.5, 5 hour drive from Vancouver, about 1 hour south from Kelowna. That's one of the major cities in our region. And we're about, I would say, an hour north of the border with the United States, Washington State. We have the highest number of sunshine in Canada. So if you're coming from a warmer climate and looking for a warmer climate to Canada, this is it. We have low level of humidity. We don't have a lot of rain. Some of the areas are considered actually Canada's desert. So we have very dry climate. And that's why we have a few forest fires during the summer. But thankfully, last year was pretty good. We have 2 lakes. So our city is very unique. We're kind of stuck between 2 lakes, and there are mountains on both sides, which is really, really beautiful. We have mountains, as I said, orchards and wineries. Over 100 wineries for sure. So that's our community. You see a couple of pictures of the city. There's a little hill with the sign of Penticton. Usually when you drive into the city, this is what we look for, thinking, oh, here it is, now we're home. Our population is a bit over 90,000. There are around 45,000 in Penticton. So Penticton is the largest community. But we also have a lot of like little villages and little towns around that you can choose to live in. We have an older population because this is, as I mentioned, we have a warmer climate, and a lot of people from all over Canada want to retire here and have a nice, peaceful life in a nice environment. So our population is a bit older. We have around 14% of immigrants, and major ethnic groups are Filipino, Punjabi, Portuguese, and Greek that immigrated here a while ago, over 20 years ago. So Filipino and Punjabi are more newer communities. So the lifestyle, there is a lot to do in South Okanagan. As I mentioned, we have beautiful nature, so you can go biking, hiking. We have a special place where you can do rock climbing. We have lots of sporting activities. We have soccer, swimming. In 2 lakes, as I mentioned, we have recreation centers. We have different tournaments and events, festivals, like a Peach Festival, Elvis Presley Festival, and anything in between. We have a big convention center, so there are conferences and concerts at that center all the time. And on the picture here on the right, you see a performance from one of our traditional festivals that we call One World, where we celebrate different cultures. And we do it annually every February. So if you arrive in the winter, you can catch it. So the transportation, that's one of our biggest kind of challenge in the area because most people have cars. But it's changing slowly. We do have buses around the city and they run constantly. They're not expensive, $2.25, and you can get a pass as well. And mostly like you can catch a bus every half hour. So they're not as frequent as in a big city, but they're available. We also have limited bus services to Kelowna and surrounding areas. So Oliver, Osoyoos, and Summerland, we have limited bus service. So as I mentioned, most people drive, so it will be handy to have a car. But I don't drive, so I use a bike, and there are many, many bike lanes in the region and in the city. Basically, they're building more and more. There's one new one on my street. Actually, they just finished this summer. So there are opportunities for people who don't drive. We have a bunch of regular grocery stores, so you don't have to drive far if you live in Penticton or Summerland. If you are in a smaller village, you would have to drive. Like for example, we have Kaliden. Kirimias only has one store, so that it's limited a little bit. So you might have to drive. We also have ethnic food grocery stores in Penticton and Oliver, and we're so happy about it. There are a number of religious facilities. And so here we'll list some that are available in the region, but others are available in Kelowna. Like, for example, there is an Islamic center, but it's not an official, like an actual place. It's a gathering place. So many people go to Kelowna for services on Friday. Healthcare. So you probably researched already that if you're moving to BC or anywhere in Canada, you would need to apply for your public health insurance. Here we call it medical services plan. It would take 3 months to get it, but meanwhile you can get the private insurance. Then you would have a family doctor. You would try to find a family doctor. There are not many here, unfortunately, but it's possible to find one. I'm really happy with the one I have. We have walk-in clinics for people who don't have family doctors. So you can just go to that clinic and wait a bit and get the service. We have a number of hospitals. There's one big new one in Penticton, but also in other communities, as you see on the screen. And of course, specialized care professionals. Education. We have a number of schools for all ages, including private schools for your kids. So we have a Francophone French school. We have even an Indigenous cultural school. Unisys is in Summerland, and it's an international school. So we have a lot of kids from different countries there. We have 2 colleges. One is Okanagan College, and the other one is Sprott-Shaw College that you can see on the pictures. And we also have UBCO, which is University of British Columbia, Okanagan in Kelowna, which is just an hour drive from us. So if you have children of that age or you want to go to school and continue your education, there are tons of opportunities here. Cost of living. So if you did some research about where you're going to go and looked at different prices, our region is still considered to be more affordable than bigger cities such as Toronto or Vancouver. But with the recent, with the pandemic and a lot of people moving here, our rental prices went up. When I moved here 3 years ago, we were renting for $1,000. Now the prices are a little bit higher, and even this price is a little lower now because of higher rates for mortgages, interest rates. So the prices went down a little bit. So you can probably find something. Recently, I checked for 14 to 1,500, 1 or 2 bedroom. Yeah, utilities as usual. Some rentals include utilities. Sometimes you have to pay extra. And the most expensive bill would be your electricity, but depending on how much you use, right? Internet and cell phones, that's another expense to consider, and it's readily available here. We actually have a really good internet connection in the region, and that's why we attract a lot of people working online remotely. And here's just an idea of the basic food items and how much they cost. Okay, so in this section, we'll talk about the employment opportunities, rate of unemployment, types of jobs, what are our key industries and in-demand jobs, and entrepreneurship opportunities, and kind of average salaries, and also how you can further develop your skills. So our unemployment rate, that's a little bit like outdated numbers because the Statistics Canada just released a new report and we didn't get a chance to update it. So in 2021, we had the unemployment rate of 5.9%, which is quite a bit. So there are a lot of jobs available here. As I mentioned, the majority of the population are older adults, so they are retired and they are not at the labor market. So we need people here, a lot of people, as you can see. So in service sector, as you see, there's a 5.5% increase. Wholesale and retail is big. Healthcare is really huge, again, because of the aging population. Financial services, goods, construction is really big. Manufacturing and natural resources, not so big, but still available. So our biggest industries are construction and infrastructure. So we're trying to build and develop our community. So there are a lot of construction projects. Hospitality and tourism is another huge one because of our environment and how, we attract a lot of people during the summer, especially. There are a lot of hotels, a lot of different opportunities at the wineries and breweries and restaurants. There are we have, I don't know, there's so many motels even active during the off season. So you will have a job most of the time, like most throughout the year. Yeah, banking is another one. We have a few banks that are looking for employees. Healthcare is really huge. We have many retirement facilities for people and long-term care facilities. And as you saw from previous slides, we have several hospitals here. So there are a lot of opportunities. Another one that's not listed here is early childhood educators. So we're building in Penticton, for example, a new childcare center, and they would need people to work there. Information and technology is huge, and you can work remotely. So that's a great opportunity to live in a beautiful, warm place and work remotely and still make a lot of money. So as at least I mentioned before, so I'm not going to go through this, but these, if you want to research some of the organizations and see if they have any openings and what they are. We have a huge, actually, I didn't mention that, we have a huge social services sector, a lot of nonprofit organizations, so a lot of opportunities there as well. And for scientists out there, we have two very unique facilities, the Summerland Research and Development Center, located in Summerland. And this one is focusing on agriculture. So they look at developing new seeds and do a lot of research, and they're famous throughout North America. And another one is Dominion Radio Astrophysical Observatory, also for scientists. Like out there, they're always looking for great people. Okay, and for business-minded people, we have a lot of opportunities as well. In fact, through my communication with my colleagues and my networks, I know that many people have their regular jobs, and they also have small businesses on the side, as they call like a hustle. So there, as I mentioned, there's wineries, but there's also a lot of farming opportunities, and there's a growing food industry. So if you're thinking of establishing a restaurant, something unique that would be really in demand because of the tourism industry. And the priority industries identified for Penticton are food manufacturing services and filming actually. So if you're in that field, you will have opportunities here and in Kelowna. We have a few chambers of commerce that support businesses and do a bunch of events, networking meetings, dinners. So you would be able to meet a lot of businesses in the community and establish your professional and social networks. Another opportunity is British Columbia Provincial Nominee Program. You will probably won't need to use it because you're already on the way coming here, but maybe for your friends and relatives and something to explore. It's a little bit unique because it's focusing on smaller communities, and the amount of investment is much lower than regular provincial nominee program. So for Penticton, you would only need 100,000 compared to 300,000 as for the general province. Okay, so these are average salaries. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can check kind of the average and what to expect. Yeah, and this is another important feature of our communities, that many people like to have a more laid back, I would say, and they like to have a little bit more time to spend with their friends and relatives and families, and go to wineries and enjoy the beaches during the season, right? So they try and negotiate with their employers to have like shorter days or take some time off. And this is a very like, it's not unique, like people are ready for that, and many employers accommodate. So flexible schedules, some people work remotely. As you know, many people do work remotely now, as you see me and Ligia. And as I mentioned, many people have a small business and their regular career 9 to 5 as well. And seasonal work, that's again those like farms, and some restaurants close during the winter, so it might be seasonal. So you might work half a year and then you can take some time off and work on your business. That's what many people do actually. Yeah, so I mentioned this before, so I'm not gonna elaborate on that, but we have several colleges, and we have the university just an hour away from us, and they offer different programs. For example, in Penticton, there are two colleges that offer some subsidized or free programs for newcomers in healthcare, like for healthcare professionals. So they call them healthcare aides here, which is they call them personal support workers in Ontario, but it's basically, yeah, we have a program here at two colleges that offer that, as well as early childhood educator. There's a new program that you can get in, and it's going to be very affordable. And to conclude, I wanted to share with you our newcomers welcome guide that has a lot of information about how to settle in the region, helps you understand different systems like healthcare, education, but much more. We also provide useful links, like if you're looking for an apartment to rent, to buy, where to buy a car, how to get your driver's license. All of that is in this welcome guide, and please check it out. This is the website. So soix.ca-welcome welcome guide. And that's about it.
Thank you so
And
much, Omira.
of course. So I was pretty quick, actually. I thought that
We
I would be longer.
No, that's perfect because then that leaves people time to ask questions, and I already have a lot of questions for you. But before that, let me just share my screen again and talk a little bit about Project Welcome while you folks ask questions. Again, type it on the questions box. Let me know if you want to ask it, and I will unmute you, or I will ask Elmira the questions. Um, just some information on Project Welcome. So SOICS, which is Omira's organization, partners with Project Welcome to connect pre-arrival immigrants like yourselves to a mentor in your occupation in a small community. So some of you may be familiar with other mentorship that we offer at Canada InfoNet. This is another opportunity where you can be connected to a mentor in a small community. So not only you get information about your profession and how to job search for your industry in Canada, but also the details of doing that in a small community like South Okanagan. So South Okanagan is one of our partners, and they already have a couple of great mentors and continue to recruit more. So not only you get the connection to a mentor, but you'll also get access to a welcome toolkit to the community that your mentor is in. So for example, if you get a mentor in Penticton or in South Okanagan, you would have e-learning modules with even more information that Elmira has provided today. They worked with us on that welcome toolkit. So there's a lot of information there. So if you are interested in Project Welcome and you're ready to register, you need to be approved for immigration to Canada. So just like to participate in Canada InfoNet, same eligibility criteria. You need to have more than 2 months before your arrival. So if you're arriving within November or early December, unfortunately, it's unlikely that we'll be able to serve you. But for those of you arriving at the end of December or even better next year, we can certainly try to find you a mentor in a small community. And if you want that, if you're interested, you can ask your Canada InfoNet employment specialist. They can refer you directly to Project Welcome, or you can go to www.welcome.canadainfonet.org and register directly. But make sure that you talk to your employment specialist about it. They'll have more information as well. And just understand that this is not a commitment that you will settle in that community, right? Or even in any small community. It is an opportunity for you to be connected to professionals who live and work in small communities in Canada and get more information. So that was my part, and now we can go to the questions, which I have already seen a lot of them coming up. Um, let me take a look. Okay. Amira, do you want to add anything before I start asking questions?
No, this is fine. I actually see Arsh's question about finding a
Mm-hmm.
job at UBCO. Well, that's kind of it depends, right? It depends on what kind of job you're looking for. If it's in teaching, you can do a quick Google search and find what's available right now. Mostly they would post on Indeed or on their website. And
Mm-hmm.
we also have, like, for example, if you are considering teaching, and there's nothing available there, there might be something available on campus at the college here. Okanagan
Mm.
College is actually pretty big. You can
Mm-hmm.
check their website and see what's available right now. Through the Project Welcome, we have somebody working actually at the Okanagan College who we might be able to connect you with as a mentor. And
Mm-hmm.
he's originally from Mexico, and he had a lot of experience in consulting before, but now works at the college part-time and also takes some courses to kind of change his career and upgrade
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So he might be a good, um, consultant for you or like mentor for you. Yeah.
I'll just read that full question because the rest of the audience cannot see the questions that we're
Mm-hmm.
getting. So Arsh had asked, how easy is it to get a job at UBCO? So as Amira had mentioned, it's University of British Columbia, Okanagan, which is in Kelowna, and that they would consider moving to Okanagan with that possibility, right? And we understand that job opportunities are what drives most people when deciding where to settle. So it's really hard for us to say how easy is it to get a job anywhere. But I think we can explore a little bit more of the kinds of jobs, right, Omira? So you mentioned there is UBCO, but there's also colleges and other places where you can explore those skills. So I think um, can you tell us a little bit, maybe you know some other stories of other immigrants who went to South Okanagan region and ended up using their skills in something different than what they were doing before? Do you have anything like that to
Well,
share?
there are many actually. There's so many. Mostly it's related to starting their own business because I think this is the major kind of opportunity. There are many opportunities here, yeah, for creative
Mm-hmm.
people. So I would say for people who, like, say they're in engineering or they used to be a medical doctor, and it's hard for them to, to go through the licensing and registration process. Unfortunately, it's every province is like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's complicated, but they then consider something else, like, for example, going into research at UBCO
Mm-hmm.
or starting their own business and doing something innovative and creative. Um, so there are many different things, but I would say business is one of the major opportunities. There are
Mm-hmm.
not many industries here. As I mentioned, there are like tourism is big, construction is really big,
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, like
Mm-hmm.
these three I would say at top, and then
Mm-hmm.
also farming. If you are so for example, if you're a professional in the agricultural sector, there are a lot of opportunities here. And
Mm-hmm.
the research center in Summerland, if you're more into not hands-on but more into research, they actually bring people from abroad. They look for them, they pick them and bring them here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With that, because you mentioned certain employers, I feel like that's something that can be different about job searching in small communities, that you can really target employers as opposed to looking at just like, do you feel that it's different looking for a job in, let's say, a city like Toronto, where you lived for many years, and doing that in a small community like South Okanagan, that you can really like target and reach out to employers directly? Would you recommend that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you said, we're a smaller community and it's easier to find the place you want to work at. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I I like that Arsh, for example, identified where they want to go, right? So it's better to focus on a few, okay, this is what I want to do. Let's focus on these employers and get their updates, sign up to their newsletters, maybe attend some virtual events that they host so they can see you and you can show yourself somehow, right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
picking up some project from them doing online, depending on your field again, right? While you're still waiting, because there are now a lot of opportunities to work remotely. It
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be it shouldn't be an obstacle. And that's another thing. So even if you don't find a job here, but you find it say in Vancouver or Toronto and you can work remotely, you can still settle here, right? So that's another opportunity. And we have a lot of people moving from the coast, from Vancouver to
Mm-hmm.
Penticton because of our weather
Yeah.
and low cost of living, right? And they're keeping their jobs and they're pretty happy.
Yeah, and that's important that you mentioned earlier that you have good infrastructure for that, right? So like internet connection, that's maybe a myth that people have about small communities that you have poor connection. So at least for South Okanagan, right? It's a
Yeah,
myth.
well, unless you're hiking in the mountains, you
Yeah.
can get the signal anywhere. And they're developing like more and more, they're hoping to have it available even in public parks, which
Hmm.
that would be amazing because you can work on the beach then.
That
I'm
sounds
waiting
good.
for that. Yeah.
So Arsh, who had asked this question, did say that work is the main driver as to where to settle, but weather as well. And we know that's true for many newcomers. And when we say warm weather in Canada, it's different than warm weather near the equator, which is where I'm from. So just let's keep realistic expectations. It's still not like equatorial weather, right? But it's much warmer than, let's say, Toronto or other places in Canada, right?
Yeah, we do get snow, but it's very bearable. Like it's not, you don't have to shovel snow every day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's mild. It's milder. It doesn't stay here for a long time. And our
Mm-hmm.
summers are quite long. Like for example, even last week, which is end of October, our temperatures were around 14, 15 degrees, and the week before 20, 22.
That's lovely.
So it's
Yeah.
not too bad, right?
Yeah.
And so the winters are short. In March, we already see spring coming, so
Okay.
that's not too,
Mm-hmm.
not too bad. Compared to Vancouver, though, and you probably have done your research already, what Vancouver is milder in terms of they don't get snow very often. I think
Mm-hmm.
last year accidentally they did, but they don't get a lot of sunshine as we do. So they do see a lot of rain. So if you are not a
Mm-hmm.
fan, then yeah, well, our climate is pretty dry.
Good to know the difference. So, moving on for some other set of questions. Someone's asking, Varinder is, and I'm sorry everyone if I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm trying my best here. Can I have a PhD program in pharmacology over there? So I'm assuming the person wants to pursue a PhD, which I don't expect you to know all the areas that are available, but would you say that for that level of the education would have to be in Kelowna or uh,
Yeah, I would
are
say,
there
well,
PhD
again, you
programs?
would need to research what programs Kelowna has, but again, it's only an hour drive. So if you
Mm-hmm.
move to Toronto, you would probably drive an hour to anywhere you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like a perspective.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit more difficult in the winter if you're not
Mm-hmm.
used to driving um, in the valley, so
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by mountains, right? So the weather is a bit unpredictable, but we have a lot of people who work in Kelowna and live here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I was gonna
especially
ask
if you,
how common that was, like how
yeah,
doable.
absolutely.
Because yeah,
It's
driving an hour in
absolutely.
Toronto is just going from one side to the other of the city, so doesn't
Yeah,
sound.
and then you can also like, yeah, of course we're hoping that people come here to South Okanagan, but Kelowna is Central Okanagan, which is just an hour away, and there is West Kelowna, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
in between another community called Peachland, where it's more affordable as well. It's a smaller
Mm-hmm.
community, and that's only half an hour drive. So there
Okay.
are options if you want to consider
It's a
UBC.
well-connected region, right? It sounds
Mhm.
like.
Yeah, we have a major highway. We have two ways to get to Vancouver. So it's, yeah.
Hmm. Because we're on the topic of transportation and you mentioned that you don't drive and you bike, I wanted to ask you, do you bike through all seasons? How do you do with your
Well,
transportation?
well, it depends. If it snows, then no.
Hmm.
I also have a scooter, so I use a scooter
Oh,
sometimes.
cool.
I mostly walk everywhere, like in the city, even like if you consider, okay, maybe it's too much, but if I have to, for example, if I miss the bus and I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
wait, I can walk to my work. And my work is downtown. I'm kind of midtown. It
Mm-hmm.
takes me maybe 25 to 30 minutes to walk.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Yeah, good to know there are these other options, right? So, moving on to another set of professions, do you know if there are many opportunities for musicians and performers?
Oh, that's interesting. We do have a huge community of musicians because of our tourism industry.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, as I said, we have a convention center where we host like world-known musicians, and
Mm-hmm.
they come for concerts here. But we also have an orchestra, a philharmonic orchestra. We also have opportunities for like private business. So
Mm-hmm.
all wineries, all breweries, we have, I think, 4 or 5 now. During the season, they host
Mm-hmm.
musician nights. So you can do that. We have a dream cafe that is known for that. They have, I think, every night they have a different musician coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on your field. But yeah, I would
Mm-hmm.
say if you're doing more like private performances, yes, for
Mm-hmm.
sure, you can do that. And if you're looking for classical music opportunities, they're also available. We also have a jazz festival that we have every year. And again, if it's not here, it would be in Kelowna for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I guess for, oh, sorry, I replied to the wrong person. Someone was asking, there's another webinar in 3 hours. Is it the same as this? It is not. I don't know which webinar you're talking about. There's many webinars happening at JVS Toronto. So this webinar will be over in the most 13 minutes. So just letting you know, that was not the question for the person who asked about musicians. Um, no, Arsh, I don't know how that's showing in 3 hours from now, but this is the webinar. This is the Discover South Okanagan webinar. This will be recorded though, so if you need to leave, you will get the recording on your email. Thank you for letting us know. Anyway, sorry, Amira. So I was just gonna say for musicians, sounds like it's more of a self-employed type of thing, right? Which I think it's not even just a South Okanagan thing. I hear it's very common in the big cities as well that you would do like different performances in different places and do your own schedule, right? So um, this person is asking, the same person who asked about musicians, Averell, is asking, so regarding music opportunities, how can I get in touch with such communities or proceed in this direction? Do you know if there's any like cultural
I don't know if there are like
organizations?
any like clubs specifically, but I know there's a jazz. Uh, what is it? It's not the jazz club, but it's a kind of like an association of jazz musicians. And if you Google jazz festival in Penticton, you would
Mm-hmm.
get in touch with that community.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I wanted to mention, a lot of people here are using Facebook. This
Mm-hmm.
is their preferred social media.
Okay,
So
good to
you'll
know.
find a lot of like musicians on Facebook. You can just
Mm-hmm.
Google them, make a connection and say, hey, can I ask you a couple of questions? How to establish myself here,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we can partner, or maybe you can give me some advice.
Mm-hmm.
There are like community forums or community Facebook pages where people share that as well,
Mm-hmm.
like different things like Penticton community, like you can just Google on Facebook and
Mm-hmm.
find and try to join and just say, hey, I'm thinking of coming here. I would like to join your community, have a few questions. People are usually very responsive. So if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's a musician in that group, they would definitely respond and try to connect you.
That's a
Another
great
thing,
idea.
maybe like yeah, Dream Cafe. I will just type it here. They are pretty big on supporting musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, and Philharmonic Orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
They are
Yeah,
very
I,
active.
I think that gives a lot of different directions to explore. And I think it's important that you mentioned Facebook because a lot of times when we're talking about job searching and networking and we say use the internet, people think only of LinkedIn, but that varies so much based on profession and even on location, right? Do you feel that for professional networking, Facebook can be used in the region?
Yeah, absolutely. Not many, I would say, a very small group of people use LinkedIn for connecting.
Mm-hmm.
Another suggestion for networking, I
Mm-hmm.
would recommend if you're in a business field and you want to start your business, for example, um, I would suggest joining one of the chambers, and they have online events or workshops where you can just say, hey, I'm planning to move here. I decided to join the chamber and get to know you, because they do have online events that started because of the pandemic, but now they have also in person, which is a great opportunity to meet people
Mm-hmm.
and
So
make
these
these
are the
connections.
Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yes, and we
So
have
you can just
four of
Google.
them in the region. Yeah, just Google Chamber of Commerce, Penticton. I think it's called Penticton and Wine Country Chamber
Mm-hmm.
of Commerce. And yeah, you can connect with them and say, how can I join?
There you go. So that's a tip for everyone, business related, to take a look at what the Chamber of Commerce of the different ones in the region offer, right? It's important to connect with people, I think, from the community. There's a lot of information on websites, but I think that the earlier that you can connect to someone in the community that is somehow related to your field, that can open a lot of doors, right, Amira?
Absolutely.
Um, while we wait to see if there's any more questions, I just wanted to ask you, Amira, if you can tell people a little bit, how did you feel when you first moved to the region? Like, how welcoming was the community for you as an immigrant, as a newcomer to the community? Like, is there anything that you want to highlight or
Yeah,
tell
well,
us
I
about?
think it's important to know that, yeah, as I said, although we are diverse, we're not as diverse as bigger communities, yeah. So the
Mm-hmm,
majority of the population are white Canadians. So be prepared for that. It
mm-hmm,
doesn't, it doesn't mean you won't find people who are like you, like from different communities. We have, like, I think I'm the only one from Kazakhstan, but there are other people who speak my language, and I can find them and make like my little, kind of create my little bubble. But it's important to also get out of that bubble. And this is a great opportunity here because you can meet other people. What happens in Toronto and Vancouver is we normally, like in Vancouver, Toronto, yeah, you find your group from your home country, and you kind of like you're comfortable there, and many people just stay in that kind of enclave, and that's not a good idea if you want to truly integrate and learn about the culture and be a part and feel that you belong, right? Here it's possible because of the small community where you can meet your neighbors. All you need to do, I would suggest volunteering. Even if you didn't find a job yet, go and volunteer a few hours
mm-hmm.
here, a few hours there. You can volunteer at the events, which is like one day, but you meet tons of people there, right?
Yeah.
And make connections. And yeah, and just go to different events and say hello to people. And farmers markets, we have a bunch of those. These are good way to establish connections, local connections.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say the community is pretty friendly. We had, as any other community, we had incidents of racism, but
Mm-hmm.
that's throughout the country.
Yeah.
And yeah, our office, like our organization, works on that, and we try to change people's, behaviors first through changing their kind of mindset. So we do a lot of like sharing stories about newcomers and
Yeah.
doing different activities.
That's a very important work that you folks do at SOICS and LIP. I think this may be your last question. If you have any other questions, please post it so we can try to tackle. But what is the nearest airport? I think for immigrants, that's a very important question
Yeah,
because we want to
actually,
know how long it
luckily,
takes.
I didn't mention it. We do have our own airport, and that's really important
Yeah.
for a small community. So there's a Penticton airport, there's a Kelowna airport,
Mm-hmm.
which is again 1 hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there are options.
So the Penticton Airport, I believe, has like more than one daily flight to Vancouver, or at least a daily flight
Yeah,
to
and
Vancouver,
yeah,
right?
we have yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver. Penticton has at least one, and we have some for Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
possible. I normally fly through Penticton just because I don't want to like go to Kelowna and all the way, but
Mm-hmm.
it's possible if you're looking for
Yeah.
cheaper options or worried about getting home. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. So it can connect you to an international airport easily.
hmm hmm It's
Okay.
just from Vancouver, it's like 30-minute flight. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very
Very
easy.
close. Okay. Thank you so much, Elmira. It was a pleasure to have you. I think people had opportunities to ask many questions. Again, if you are interested, register for Project Welcome or discuss it with your employment specialist. I saw that some people mentioned they are not sure on where they want to settle, and that's absolutely the point of the webinar and Project Welcome. It's not to make you settle somewhere. It's just to give you access to more information about different places in Canada so then you can make the best decision for yourself and your family if you're coming with more people. So if you are on the not sure area, do connect with your employment specialist, discuss it with them, and if you're eligible, they'll refer you to Project Welcome, where you have the opportunity to explore that option with a mentor in a small community. Or you also be connected to a mentoring coach that will give you that support and you get more access to more information. So especially for those who have a little bit more time to make that decision, again, I'm an immigrant myself and I've been there, Elmira as well. I feel that the more information that you have access to in an early stage, that will help you make the decision that suits you best at this moment, at least, right? It could be that you get all this information and you still decide to settle in Toronto or Vancouver, and that may be great for you, right? But don't
Yeah,
make that decision based on lack of information. That's what we're trying to avoid here.
exactly. And I think, well, ideally, I know how it is. Like you immigrate and you're so stressed, you're trying to find a job and you don't really have the luxury of, going to different communities and, exploring. That would be the ideal situation. If you
Mhm.
land somewhere temporarily, maybe in a big city, and if you're not stressed about finding a job, then you would have an opportunity to go around and visit. Come for
Mhm.
3, 4 days and just see it for yourself, meet some people, right? But yeah, that's in the in an ideal world. But
That
we,
would be
I,
lovely, but you can do that
yeah,
virtually through mentors
exactly.
and programs like this, right? That's the
Exactly,
goal.
and that's why I think this program is really important because if I had an opportunity to learn about South Okanagan, I probably would have done it earlier, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
thank you again, Elmira. Thank you for your
absolutely. Thank
time and
you.
your
Thank you
partnership.
for having me.
Yes, and thank you everyone for attending. Please fill out the post-webinar survey. And if you have any other questions, you can send it out to your employment specialist and they'll connect to us. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
rest of
you.
your day
Bye,
or
Alicia.
evening.
Bye,
Bye bye.
everybody. Thank you.